Good evening. Welcome to the October 11th, 2023 meeting of the City of Revere Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. My name is Joe Ravelisi, and back in the seat chairing this month's meeting. Thank you to the Vice Chair, Claire, and our Treasurer and IO for holding down the fort while I was out sick last month. It's good to be back. I'll do a quick roll call. We have both in-person and virtual participation in the meeting, which I'll re-clarify again that that's still very much permissible. There was a little confusion about that. Dialing in is perfectly acceptable for future reference. All right, so attendance. So I'm here, Vice Chair Claire Zarillo. Present. And Treasurer
Anaya Swicky, present.
And Layla.
Present.
And Dean Harris.
Present.
And Jan Dumas.
Present.
And then Deb Frank is not here. And then I'm Mayor's Office designee. So with that, we do have a quorum, so we're able to move forward. And I don't think we've met in person yet, but Michael, we welcome Michael. How do you pronounce your last name, Michael? Viano. Michael Viano, to talk about a time-sensitive but interesting opportunity for us to support affordable housing. I do want to quickly, just for the record, before we dive into that, do the finances update from the Treasurer. So if you want to fill us in.
First of all, good evening, everyone. My name is Anaya Swicky, the Treasurer. The current balance, as reported today, being the October 11th, is $860,125.60.
Appreciate that. So Michael, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about the project, as well as what we might be able to do as a board to support, that would be terrific. Yeah.
Do you think it's worth us doing kind of a walkthrough presentation of the project?
I think that would be helpful for folks that aren't familiar with it. I know that city staff is, and I'm familiar with it, but we may have some board members that might not be familiar with the project on Salem Street. But I think it would be helpful. And I don't know, Tom, if you want to help with that. Great. Mm-hmm. I'd be able to, if you wanted to email it to me, I'd be able to put it up on and share screen
Yeah,
that way.
absolutely. But I'm not, the problem is I'm not on.
Or you can go on to the Zoom.
I'm not on Wi-Fi.
It sounds like we're about to get technical assistance from Revere TV based on the sound of the door opening. I heard. Beautiful. All right.
Where's the plug now?
I propose a brief recess of 2 minutes. Any objection? No. Okay. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Chance to use the gavel, Michael, thank you. So Michael's going to talk a little bit about the project that we're discussing here for a new development. So take it away. And it sounds like we have our technology piece squared away.
Okay, thank you. Let me just put this into full screen mode. Here we go. So this project, as Tom has mentioned, is located at 133 Salem Street in Revere. It's a total of 72 units. It's mixed-use development and adaptive reuse, formerly the West Revere Nursing Home. Of the 72 units, 71 are residential, and there's one office space in the basement. For now, we're just going to kind of leave that as a blank space. And then there's roughly 17 units per floor, and there's 4 levels. So previously, last year, we actually got the special permit approved to change the use of the building from a nursing home to a mixed-use development. So that's done. We're currently about 60% through our construction phase. So at this point in time, we're putting on the top level of the building. We actually added 1 floor. And we have all of our rough mechanical, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical done through the basement level, and then the other 3 floors. Initially, when we presented the project, we had a total of 7 affordable units. Those 7 affordable units were at varying AMIs. Out of the 7 units, 2 were preferenced for a military, and 2 were preferenced for seniors. Since that time, we've decided to increase the affordability level to 18 units. The main reason being, 1, we understand that Revere needs more affordable units, and 2, it allowed us to have access to some state grant money through the Mass Housing Commonwealth Builder program. Because we applied for that program, one of the requirements is that the city makes some type of financial contribution to the project. So it could be through waiving a CPA fee, through Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or any other means. What we felt was this might be the best way to kind of meet that requirement. So that's kind of the high level of why we're here. We've since gone in front of the city council, and it appears that they are going to unanimously support the decision to increase the number of affordable units. Their main concern was, okay, where is the funding coming from? So they had some back and forth conversation. It's still kind of up for debate as to what, where that funding may come from. And so here we are tonight to try to figure that out. So a little bit about, I'll just kind of go into the presentation here, what we presented to the city council. So the current proposal, as I had mentioned, has 7 affordable units. Of those 7, we had 40 at 60 AMI, 2 at 70 AMI, and 1 at 80 AMI. The new proposal has 6 units at 78 AMI and also 12 units at the 80 AMI affordability level. We've also increased the number of military preference units from 2 units to 3 units. Same thing with the senior preference from 2 units to 3 units. So that's kind of where we stand today. The next step for us is to go in front of the subcommittee, the zoning subcommittee, to seek the approval of this change. Provided they give a favorable recommendation, it would go back in front of the city council at the end of this month for final approval. Due to the timing of the Commonwealth Builder grant application, that is going to go in front of their executive board, Mass Housing's executive board, on October 20th, which is coming up at the end of next week. So we're trying to a bit expedite this process so that we can provide them with some financial support letter from the city of Revere to bolster our application for the Commonwealth Builder Grant Program.
Thank you. I have a couple quick questions, and then we'll pass it along to others that might have questions. So what's the total number of units in the project?
So like I said, there's 72 total units, 1 commercial unit, 71 residential units. And they're varying in size, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
And what's the breakdown of which affordable units are the number of bedrooms versus market rate?
As it stands right now, I think we have 2 bedrooms and 16 1-bedrooms.
Okay.
There's also, as Tom had mentioned, the possibility of buying out some of the additional market rate units, which we would be open to, of course, if the city was interested.
And the military piece, is that active duty, veterans, both? How is that determined?
I think that'll be both.
Okay, yeah.
So it'll be both active and veterans, and that'll be run through a lottery process. So we'll gather applicants and then select, basically have 3 different, well, maybe 4 different pools, one for Revere residents only, then military preference, senior preference, and then outside of Revere residents. My guess, based on running these affordable lotteries in the past, we have never had it go to an outside applicant, like someone from outside the city that we were running it in, because of the number of applicants we got. So like our last project that we did, we had 4 affordable units. And of those, I think we had 160 applications in the city of Chelsea. That's where the development was. Yeah. So what we see, and we would expect the same in Revere, we may get, for our 18 units, 300 applicants from the city of Revere alone. So we would have to pass through all of those applicants before we would even entertain going outside of the city to review other applicants, which is unlikely.
Yeah, and so have you done a development like this in Revere? I know you mentioned the Chelsea.
We have not. This is our first development ever in Revere. So we've done, we're on our 3rd development in Chelsea. We're working on a development in Swampscott, and we're actually working on another development in Marblehead currently.
And so those have affordability components as well, or does that vary based on the location?
The one in Marblehead is actually a commercial development, so that one does not. But the one in Swampscott, what might be happening is the town is actually going to purchase the development and do 100%. Looks like affordable using like ARPA money. This is at 12 Pine Street in Swampscott. Yeah,
thank you. Other folks have questions, and I want to acknowledge 2 things. First, that Deb Frank joined us via Zoom, so. Hello, Deb. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Secondly, appreciate folks' thoughtful questions and consideration here. You know, generally speaking, we try to move pretty deliberately with the trust fund board. So this is kind of a more condensed window of trying to ask as many questions as we can and come to an informed decision. I think this is worthy of considering in the condensed time frame because of the opportunity to create affordable housing where it's much needed. So with that, I'll turn it over to others if you have questions. I see, and I know you always have good questions. We'll start.
Thank you for your presentation and how clear it was. I've got 3 questions. First, I didn't hear, was it rental or is it ownership properties?
No, this is 100% owner occupied. So
see.
this is 100% condominium. There's really no rental portion of this at all.
I see. And so the calculation from 60, 70, and 80 AMI, these are going to be somewhat adjusted to the price that you hope to sell the properties, or?
Yeah, exactly. So for example, a 1-bedroom at 80 AMI is in this area approximately $219,000. And at 70 AMI would be closer to probably like 190. That's roughly where the ranges will be. A 2-bedroom obviously is a little bit more at 80 AMI. I think the last time we looked at it was like 265,000. But these adjust year to year based on AMI adjustments
I see.
in the location.
The idea is to open it up to selected folks that satisfy a criteria of income or whatnot, maybe residency, and then there would be a pool or a lottery of sorts.
Yeah. So there'd be really like a couple of pools, but the main pool would be the first pool would be all Revere residents that were applying for these 18. Once the lottery, how it typically works is once the lottery's over, then we begin like the screening process to make sure they qualify based on their income, that they're at the 70 AMI level or 80. We do put out the guidelines with the applications, but sometimes we find like someone may have gotten a raise and it bumped them above the 70 AMI level, or someone may have lost a job or split or divorced, and that may create them to be either eligible or ineligible for a certain affordability level.
The last question I have is, ideally, what's your time window to have the project completed and maybe start the application process?
So we're going to try to start the application process in December of this year, with a target completion date, certificate of occupancy for the end of Q1 of 2024. So let's say April. I think March to April timeframe would be realistic for the first sales, provided everything stays on track right now.
Thank you so much.
And I know other folks have questions. I wanted to follow up on Anayos just on 2 things, just for clarification. What approximately do you think is going to be the market rate sale price for the market rate units?
Well, I think it varies based on size, but this, like on the lower end, I think we're going to be at the 320 range, maybe like 315. And on the upper range, I think we have some at like 5, low 5s on the 2-bedroom, larger units, let's say 1,000 square feet.
And then the other kind of just context question, I know that we've discussed this a lot internally on the board, but I think it's always helpful, you know, for public and folks that don't know. When we're talking about AMI, like 80% AMI, what does that look like, sort of income-wise, like the profile of someone, of a family that would fall into that qualification?
It depends on the household size, so.
This
there's
isn't like a
couple-
pop quiz.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but it depends,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it depends on the household size. So if
Sure.
it's like a one-person household, it might be like between 60 and 70,000. If
Right.
it's a two-person household, it's gonna obviously adjust off. If there's like 2 children, then it ratchets up based on the household size.
Yeah,
But it's probably gonna be in that range.
Yeah.
When you start getting down to like AMIs less than 60%, it's very difficult to find a candidate or an applicant that would actually qualify, if you take into account like the minimum credit score, you know, under, let's say, making under 35,000 a year. So you're really finding someone that's very specific. So we've found it's like 70 AMI,
Right.
typically for owner occupied anyway, is where you want to be, 70, 80 AMI,
Yeah.
and you'll get the largest applicant pool. For rentals, that's different
Yeah.
because they're not really qualifying for like a Fannie or Freddie mortgage, for like a conventional mortgage.
right,
Now, being that the mortgage, you know, is so strict in such a regulated industry that
yeah,
it's a black and white, you know, decision on the lender's part, whether you meet the criteria or not, based on DTI, credit score, and all that other stuff, so.
Yeah, I just think it's helpful context, you know, we've talked about this, working families in Revere, people that, you know, are public servants or, work in the service industry, work in the trades, you know, with 2 kids. You know, when you're looking at the cost of housing here, what could be like a starter property for a family of that size and that income, this is kind of what you're looking at in terms of price range and opportunity. So, it's definitely important that we're looking at that AMI range as something that we can invest in as a community. I'll open up. I know Layla had some questions. Yeah.
Because thank you for the presentation. And because it's talking about the home ownership, what happened or what is, if the person that get the lottery later on decide to sell the apartment?
The condo, yeah, so if they, how the Commonwealth Builder program works now, it's deed restricted affordable for 15 years. So if you buy the condo and you hold it for 15 years, what happens in the 16th year technically is you could sell it for market rate. Now, if you sell it before the 15-year period, then that time scale resets. So like if you sell it in year 5, then the next person that buys it would have to wait another 15 years to sell it for market rate. So it's, yes, you could sell it eventually if you can hold it for 15 years, but of course you can't rent the unit. So these are deed restricted owner occupied units. So it's not like someone could buy an affordable and say, oh, I'm going to rent it for full market price and then hold it in his or her name for 15 years and then sell it. It really has to be it's supposed to be owner occupied. So, yeah, so it's a 15-year deed restriction on the Commonwealth Builder grant program. Because we're kind of running into that in other cities, like in Chelsea, for example, all of their affordable units are deed restricted in perpetuity. So you have these like competing interests, like the city wants the affordability indefinitely, where the Commonwealth Builder program is like, okay, we'll do this for 15 years, but then the purpose of the program is to build equity, to build, value for the buyer. So we actually ran into this on a separate project today where we were, battling back and forth on what's the deed restriction. Chelsea has perpetuity, Mass Housing has 15 years. Revere, I think in the situation in Revere where there's not like an inclusionary zoning ordinance, it's kind of up for, debate as to what the right limit is. As a developer, I think we're open to adjusting that because it doesn't really have a full impact on our project. Once we sell it, we can't buy the units. We could never buy them back. It's up to the buyer as to how long they want to hold the unit.
I have another question. Who will be involved for the final decision who won the lottery? you know, part of the city workers, the city hall will be involved, or just your organization, or how this works?
Typically, how it's done is the agency that's selling it, and the city oversees the process. So when we're actually running a lottery on Friday, so like Alex Train from the city of Chelsea will be present. It will be held at our office, but they'll be present, and the real estate agent who's selling will run the lottery. We'll be there, of course. The city will be there. So the process is kind of, very transparent, but also overlooked or watched by the city. So you got, the group, or Tom would probably be involved in the actual lottery process.
So we have 71 units, 18 of them will be affordable. The mix was based mostly one bedrooms, a few two. And then the AMI that you were targeting on the 18, you had said, I think, 6 originally at 80, and then you said 12 at 80. What's the AMA?
Well, it's here. It's 6 at 70 and 12 at 80.
Okay, that's great. So when you factor in, and I know there's limits, right? So when you do the affordable condos and you sell them, it's set at like 219 for a one bedroom, correct?
Yeah,
I think
thereabouts, yeah.
Right. So when you, as a condominium though, you also have the extra expenses of condo fees, taxes, things like that. Were those numbers factored in, assuming somebody comes in at that 80% mark, that they would be able to, afford and carry that unit where it'd be less than 30% of their income kind of, that's.
Yeah, that's right. So in the past, what we've done, like, with other units, we typically set like a one bedroom at about 175 for an HOA fee, somewhere in that range, 175 to 210. Their voting right as part of the condo association is based on the market value, not the affordable price they bought it for. Their voting right is based on the market value, but their condo fee is based on kind of a preset limit, which allows them to qualify on their DTI for the unit. So based on our budget for this condominium, I think we're in, like, the one bedrooms are between 175 and 200, and I think the two bedrooms are between 200 and 225, where a market rate HOA fee for a one bedroom might be 350 to 400, and a market rate HOA for a two bedroom would be in the 400 range.
So I'll say this, I think in Revere, I'm the executive director for the Housing Authority, there's even a limit in inventory that we have on one-bedroom units for working professionals. Typically, the one-bedrooms are for elderly or disabled. So even our inventory doesn't carry, there's no reserve there for people that want to work and live in the city. And I don't think there's any units out there right now at this affordable rate. I think, 25 units that would go mostly to the working people of the city that otherwise couldn't afford to live here. A lot of your teachers, a lot of your city workers. I think it's a tremendous project.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael. I have one question. When you go before the zoning subcommittee on Monday, are you going to keep the requests in for the ask of the waiver of the CIT contribution?
I mean, it depends, I guess. I'm planning not to.
Okay.
I'm hoping not to even discuss that. Really, I want to go in front of the zoning subcommittee just to get the approval of the increase in affordable units and also the change in the AMI level.
Okay.
But not to request the CPA reduction.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. And then I do see Deb has her hand raised, and Jan might. I will add, just from my seat, in the spirit of collaboration, we always want to make sure that we're being collaborative with the work that we do. And of course, I would recommend that anything we do is, of course, conditional on the approvals being received from the city council to change the AMI and the number of units. Deb, I see that you have your virtual hand raised. I'll throw it over to you.
I do. So a couple questions from the standpoint of qualifying. I'm in the mortgage sphere on the side, do a lot of these kinds of affordable units, just ran some quick calculations at 80% of AMI on $225,000 based on today's interest rates. And, at $79,000 for a single person, they don't qualify. So that's a problem. I mean, based on where interest rates are right this minute, they are not going to qualify.
what, I guess maybe the question is, what did you put in for like a HOA fee and tax?
I didn't even calculate. I didn't add the HO fee and I didn't count the taxes. I just counted the principal and interest, and principal and interest alone, they don't have enough buffer. Really, they have about $100 left to be able to cover an HOA fee. I mean, if they have to cover an HO6 policy rider, if they have to cover taxes, they've got very little funds available to do that. So, I mean, that's just based on where interest rates are right this minute for the products that are available to be used with these loans, because you can only use mass housing, you can use the conforming products with 3% down, you can use MHP, but with those qualifications and with the interest rates, we're kind of going to struggle right now getting people qualified. I had 3 people today that applied for lottery homes that we tried to pre-qualify, and because of the restrictions and the interest rates, they just didn't make it, and they were at the 80% of AMI.
But was that with 3% down? Because we see
That was-
sometimes with the affordables, we have people upwards of 10 to even 20%.
Sometimes we see that. I mean, sometimes we see that, and unfortunately, that's not always, it's not really enough in many cases. If we can use the down payment or grant assistance or DPA assistance to prepay like a single premium private mortgage insurance, that helps. But we don't often, the Mass Dreams funds has been exhausted at this point, so that was a big help. Even using Mass Housing's DPA assistance, which is up to $50,000 for an AMI of up to 100. Even with that, I've seen people not qualify. One of the other issues is with multifamilies, and this is relatively new. Multifamily homes, the rental income didn't typically become part of the AMI calculation or the household income. It was used to qualify, but it wasn't part of the household income. Many of the programs now are counting the rental income or anticipated rental income as the household income. So it blows up the AMI there too. I mean, this is a recent problem just because of interest rates, creeping up so much in the last 30 days.
My question to Deb is, what do you suggest going forward?
I would say based on today, I mean, not that I would want to see this all the time, but I don't think 80% AMI is going to allow us to have a pool of buyers that are going to qualify because of the interest rates. We might have to raise that a little bit unless interest rates come down.
So Deb, and I guess anyone, Tom, Michael, is there a precedent for what happened? Like, I doubt this ever really happens, but if there is a lottery process for affordable housing and not enough people qualify who apply, what kind of happens from there?
Well, I can tell you, we just had that happen. I had 2 people that had been approved for a lottery, and they were pre-approved with us already. They were approved, they won the lottery, came back to us, and interest rates had been going up a point and a quarter from when they made the application. So now they no longer qualify, and that's where we are. So they're starting over again, re-choosing people.
See, Tom?
Yep, so I'd say 2 things in response to that. One, I think we can sort of control what we can control within this room. And we certainly have a need for more affordable homeownership units, and we can't control the vagaries of the market, but that also could work in our favor in the months to come, provided the Fed at least, if not keeps interest rates where they are, maybe starts to inch them lower and lower. But, a lot of that's outside of our control. I think with regard to the setting of the AMI, that's really set with Mass Housing through the Commonwealth Builder Program. And, hopefully the trust will have some investment in this development, but Mass Housing has over $4 million, or would, if this was approved. And I think if we encountered an issue like that, that would be a discussion amongst myself, Mike, and Mass Housing to figure out what we need to do to increase the pool of buyers to make sure that we're meeting the needs of homeowners that can afford the units. And they do set a range of AMI, so you're not stuck at just that one spot. But I think that's just an ongoing conversation we're going to have with them throughout. And they have $4 million invested in this program, so they're going to want to make sure it gets done right.
Other questions? Deb, thank you as always for bringing your expertise in this field. It's always much appreciated. Jan, I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity. I don't know if you had any questions. Not, I do see Dean's hand went up. Throw it over. Yep.
I'd like to talk about what Deb said, and I think it's worthwhile, because that's basically what my question was, right? So at 80% with the condo fee and the taxes, could somebody afford it? And she's saying no, and I'm guessing that was based on a single person at 80% AMI, although there could be two people in a household where the 80% would be up to like 87,000, and that may make a difference. They wouldn't necessarily be in a two-bedroom, they could still be in the one-bedroom. But I do think that if we're going to put money into the project, right, to satisfy the condition, that there should be, you know, some numbers in front of us which show that somebody could afford the unit. And while I know Mass Housing has those limits and those numbers on there, you know, maybe it doesn't work at 219, maybe it works at, you know, 210 or 200,000, where somebody at 80% AMI could afford it. And I think you know, maybe we would feel more comfortable if we knew that that what we're putting into would really go towards some of that 80% AMI. My thought was, if you couldn't rent them to somebody, you know, then you're getting somebody with a voucher that's going to go in there and grab it. And now you're really not expanding your housing stock, because you already have those vouchers out in place.
But it
Just
can't
to
be.
be clear, it's deed restricted for owner occupied, is that
Owner-occupied.
right?
Yeah, you can use your voucher in the home ownership programs and buy things like that through our home ownership program at the Housing Authority. It might be, but you're not really expanding the stock.
I agree that we need to take into account the actual affordability of what affordable housing is, but in my juvenile naivete of home ownership, I would say in this city where we are historically, not us specifically, but where the city's historically been against affordable development and inclusionary zoning, I think at this point, we should take what we can get and appreciate a council that would support affordable homeownership and affordable building, because that's not always necessarily the case. And the very short amount of time I've been here, I've seen various requests and proposals go before them that do not go through. So while I do have qualms about the actual affordability and what it means to be at 70, 80% AMI, I think we should, you know, it sucks to say take what we can get, but I really do think, you know, beggars can't be choosers in the city of Revere when it comes to getting affordable housing actually built and getting those deed restrictions in.
But one thing I think that Tom mentioned that's probably doable, if we don't think we can hit it at 80 AMI, the Commonwealth Builder, I believe, allows you to go to 70 AMI, but they won't let you go below 70. I think it goes to 60. So it's not, I think that, like Tom had mentioned, that there could be potential some wiggle room with Mass Housing.
And so my experience working with Mass Housing, both with this program and their workforce housing program, is they create a range. Actually, I think the range might even go up to 100% AMI in this case.
I think that's right.
That their range is set at after looking at the circumstances, and it very well might be developed after the formal process by which Mike's going to go in front of their board next week, where they take a look at the numbers, they take a look at the market, they take a look at the exact same things that Deb and Dean had mentioned, and make sure that we're actually putting a product in front of buyers that they have the capacity to purchase. And I trust the judgment of Mass Housing's team to make sure that, you know, they've done this with dozens of projects throughout the Commonwealth, to make sure that they're setting that limit at the right spot that is still, you know, affordable for the types of folks that we're trying to reach.
Joe, I have a quick logistical question. Do we have that flexibility and wiggle room if the special permit specifically states a percentage at AMI? Do we have that wiggle room?
So, well, we were talking about this, it struck me that it might behoove us to request a range.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to bring up to the
Okay.
council on Monday as well.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's a good idea, you know, obviously, that was gonna be my question too, would be if the AMI changes, would that necessitate going back to the council? So it sounds like the answer is yes, but you can go with a range.
That would be my hope with them on Monday. I'd request a change of language there.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So, we could also run it through mass housing and just bring up this point and say, look, if we get a pool of applicants where we see the first 10 applicants can't qualify at 80 AMI, would you be willing to, change the deed restriction to 70% AMI? And I think the last thing mass housing would want to see is they go through this program and the first 10 applicants don't qualify because they don't meet the 80 AMI threshold or they can't qualify for a mortgage. They would want to make the change to make sure that the units would actually sell. Because at the end of the process, there is a full audit of the project that mass housing essentially will review prior to issuing the last payment of the grant.
And I guess the other thing I would add is if we're anticipating receiving a flood of applicants, which I think is a reasonable anticipation to make, I think it's certainly the case that there might be those anecdotal situations where people are not able to afford at 80%. But if we're looking at 300 applicants and we've got, 17 units that we're looking to sell, hopefully there could be a healthy mix of those that might have the financial capability, could put more down, might have less, student debt burdens or other relief that might actually make the numbers work for them, so.
Yeah, we've seen housing units, affordable units, where people put 50% down. There is a upper limit of, how much cash you could have on hand to qualify for an affordable unit. I don't know what the exact limit is. It depends on the.
75,000.
75, there it is. So some people have put down, we've seen on mortgages, 25,000 or even 50,000. Now, I'm not saying that's the norm. That's not the norm. I think what Joanne had mentioned was 3%, 3 to 5% is probably the typical target value for a down payment. But obviously, if you put more down, your mortgage payment's less and you would qualify for the mortgage.
Yeah, these are all great questions. I think obviously in an ideal world, we'd be maybe having the inventory or creating the inventory that you'd have more of a one-to-one match between number of applicants and number of slots. I think realistically, we probably would be. I mean, your most recent project of this sort, maybe just for context setting, how many applications did you get for number of units?
Yeah, we got about 150, I would say, for 4 units in the city of Chelsea. And what we see too on the affordable units is people usually try to reach out to family members to make the loan work. So if they win the lottery, you can get so much gifted, you may know the exact amount, but you can get a certain amount of your down payment gifted in order to qualify as well. So there's some other ways to do it. I don't think you can get co-signers, but there's other ways around it. What we see is that people try to find a way to actually take ownership of the unit.
Yeah, that's helpful background and context, and I think in addition to it kind of speaks back to, again, when we think about the profile of folks that fall into the AMI, we may have a certain vision in our head of like people who qualify for affordable housing and what their income is, but the reality, because the AMI has gone up so much in Revere, generally, they may not be well off, but there are folks that may have a certain amount for a down payment available, and it's just the lack of inventory that's holding them back rather than, not having stable income or some money put away.
I have just one. So the terms are kind of unclear to me. I'm hearing AMI. I know what that means, but actually the number itself, when I look it up on Google and trying to find the numbers, saying here 100.
Are you looking in
120.
the city of Revere?
Yeah. So my question really is not even just to whether or not I know what it is.
Yeah.
Is it possible to use actual numbers?
So they set it every single year. They set what the AMI is for each city based off, occupation, housing market, everything. So I think in Revere, it's like 70-something thousand for one person. Like most city hall employees who are in Unit B, so not directors or chiefs, all qualify for 80% AMI in Revere.
Well, what I'm saying is just, so for general public consumption of this conversation, they know what the number is, right? So if you're saying AMI and you multiply that times 80%, we all can do the math, but what does that actually mean when you're saying 80, 70, 60? So when we're talking to folks.
So for a household of 1 in Revere, 80% AMI is, thank you, Deb, beat me to it. So AMI, 100% of AMI is 79, right? $79,980. That's 100% of AMI for a household of one.
Yeah.
So then, I was not a math major in college, multiply that times.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
not for me. 'cause
80 and
I'm-
60.
I'm literally doing the math on my
Yeah,
phone
and I
to
will
get
say,
for
so all
folks
of
that
these tables are available through the HUD website and also on Mass Housing, so it's very transparent. And then when they do the listings, if you check, like, not Revere Journal, because we don't have a lot of these right now, but Boston Globe or Chelsea Record, or some of the papers where they're doing affordable housing lotteries, it lists, this is the income range. It doesn't just say percentage, it says, you know, if your income is between X and Y, you qualify for, this project. Is that an accurate description, would
Yeah,
you say?
in Boston Housing Authority, if you Google that Boston Housing Authority and you look at percent, like you type in Boston Housing, 80% AMI, the Boston Housing Authority keeps their tables, well, like pretty up to date. Now, there's gonna be minor differences between Boston and Revere, but it will be within, you know, I would say plus or minus 5%.
I was just simply mentioning it for ease of conversation for whomever, not just me, but whomever's listening to it. They know now they can go online to these
Yeah.
sources and
Yeah.
and find what this means. So as they are trying to figure
Yeah.
out if they qualify, they know what it even means when you say 80 or 70% AMI.
Yeah, in the application for the affordable units, what it'll say, like when we post it in the newspapers, it would give all of those levels. So like 80 AMI at one single household, you know, 2, 3, and then it'll go into 70 AMI, 1, 2, 3. So people that are applying
No.
have a good idea of what they'll qualify. And that's actually in the affirmative fair housing marketing plan, which was submitted to Mass Housing. It's a requirement of the Commonwealth Builder Program application. You need to supply that. And our real estate broker created that plan. So that will go into where all the, where everything's gonna be posted, like on what websites, what newspapers, for how long, what are the date ranges, who's involved, when will the lottery take place, who you submit your application. So all that is in that plan that Mass Housing's reviewed. So we could send a copy to you so you could review that, but it breaks down all the AMIs and everything.
Thank you.
And so, the Mass Housing website has the most recent numbers, and so I'll put them in the meeting minutes, so that not only all of us have access to it, but anyone that accesses the minutes will have access to that as well. Other, questions folks have? Deb, I see that you're unmuted. I'm not sure if that meant you had some additional, no. Wanted to make sure. Awesome. So, you know, given, like I said, the time sensitivity of this, but also the fact that we want to make sure that everything is, you know, due diligence, I would suggest, and I would put forward, a motion, that we be willing to support this project at a level of $100,000, conditional on getting city council approval, for the change in special permit, and for the affordability and for the number of units. And the reason why I'd want to put that condition on there is twofold. One would be, obviously, we want to make sure that we're collaborating with the council, and we're also not putting funds into a project that won't occur. But also, I think it's clear that, based on what Tom said, talking to Michael, there's going to be the ability to go to the council and ask for a range of AMI to give some flexibility on affordability, to make sure that we can find a pool of qualified buyers for the project for it to go forward. So with that, I'm going to make that motion for the conditional support of $100,000. And is there a second?
A second.
Okay. So I'll do a voice vote, and then if we have objections, we'll go from there. So on a voice vote, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And just making sure I'm double checking on our folks online. Okay. All right. So that's approved on a voice vote. And so just for logistical, you know, follow-up purposes, so everyone knows, I'm going to write up that amount and condition. We're going to draft it as a letter as proof of support, but it's going to be conditional, and then it'll be activated essentially should the city council approve the permit. I will update everyone on the city council process in case you're not a nerd like me and watch these things like, you know, for fun on a Monday night. And we'll be able to take action from there. Terrific. Anyone else have questions on this agenda item or comments or feedback?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
you taking the time to walk through it. And also, we definitely do appreciate, to Dean's point, there's a need for affordable housing of all kinds, for sure, but in particular, there's definitely a lack for like working, either young people, young families. The term starter home gets thrown around a lot, and starter home doesn't necessarily look the same now as it did in 1975, because that's what the prices are, and that's the market, and so to have that type of inventory available is very important, in conjunction with the other really important things that we're doing with organizations like TND, where you're looking at the rental piece. You want to have that ownership piece as well, so I appreciate that. That's something that we all support here. Awesome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Awesome. All right, thanks, everyone. Our next agenda item is the city staff update. We do have Lorena here. Tom had to run. But if you just want to provide some updates on some of the things that we've talked about, habitat and tax title, but also anything else that's going on in the housing world that we should know about.
Sure. I'll start with the Habitat for Humanity. They're still working on the preliminary feasibility. They're waiting for their excavator to come back from vacation next week to visit the site and get a second opinion and eye on the site. So hopefully next month's meeting we'll have an update on that. And then I thought I would review some of the quick data points from the mass housing Revere activity and the impact it's had so far, if that's all right with you, Joe. Do you have the slides? I emailed you the slides. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. So the slides basically demonstrate the total number of residents in Revere who received a Mass Streams grant. And the program, since its inception, was made for gateway cities and 3 other communities outside of gateway cities that met federal criteria. So they're for Revere residents, but they don't necessarily have to buy within a gateway city. And then the other slide just shows more expanded information on mass housing's impact for its down payment assistance, other down payment assistance programs, and its rental impacts. I'm sure you're more familiar with some of the Section 8 units and their rental portfolio.
So I'm not able to find the slides, so I don't know if they went into a folder or something. So if you do have them and want to put it in,
Okay.
great. If not, we could always supplement the minutes with the slides. I think that's helpful overview.
I'll see if I can find them on my phone.
Terrific. Yeah, but that's great. We appreciate the update. Also appreciate the persistence with Habitat. I know trying to get a lot of ducks in a row there, learning about the feasibility of the site, whether it's even buildable at all, and the various factors to be considered with what to do with that property. Why don't we take a very brief recess and see?
Oh, no,
do you
I'm
have-
good. I got
okay,
it.
good,
I
good.
pulled it
You got
up.
the numbers?
Okay.
Excellent.
So in total, as of now, Revere, there's been 33 grant awards. The total amount of the 33 is about 1.12 million. Out of the 33, about half, or to be exact, 17 grant awards, they've purchased the house in Revere, the rest outside of Revere. I'm not really sure what communities they've purchased homes in, but we can get that if you're interested. Compared to other surrounding communities in the North Shore, we've received the most, and we're kind of tied with some northern state communities up in Methuen and Haverhill. And then the other side was basically a breakdown of like the history since like the 70s of the down payment assistance program. So there's 2 types. I think, Deb, you're probably familiar with the two types of down payment assistance programs that are available. But I'm not going to go into that. So that's it. And I think I do have an upcoming event for first-time home buyers in Revere that Chelsea Restoration hosts on the fall seasons and in the spring. So the upcoming first-time home buyer classes are this Saturday. You can register by calling Chelsea Restoration's phone number, which I have. Hold on. The phone number is 617-889-2277 for those of you watching on YouTube Revere or watching a recording of this. I think they're still taking registrations for Saturday's course from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Lorena? Well, oh, no, if you had a question?
The first time, the program that you're doing this weekend, is it like a requirement if you are wanting to apply for the grant that you have to take one of these courses?
I believe so. Yeah.
I can answer that.
Usually you have to like take first-time home buyer classes to
Yeah,
apply
Deb-
for any of these types
Deb
of
has
things.
is raising her hand.
So the answer is, yes, you have to take one of the CHAPA approved, courses in order to qualify for most of the grants and down payment assistance programs that are available. The MHP one mortgage also requires that you take, a first time home buyer course. So it's an 8-hour course. They're normally over 2 days. Sometimes they're 1 day, but that is a requirement.
Thanks, Deb.
If you do these in the future,
Well, I don't personally do them. We have a nonprofit agency. They're from Chelsea They're called Chelsea Restoration, but they also serve folks here in Revere and in surrounding communities as
so I'll
well.
contact them and I'll get the information and send it out to
Yes,
some
they have a
people.
website, www.chelsearestoration.org.
Some other questions? Well, while we're on the thank you, Lorena. While we're on the informing the public portion of the conversation, I know Claire had an update on some support being provided.
Yeah, this is not an update from me per se, but I was in another meeting, and the Department of Health and Human Services shared the update, and I thought it would be relevant to share here to our members and to anyone watching. So Lauren Buck, Chief of the Health Department, she sent me some information. The City of Revere has now contracted Housing Families for the next fiscal year through some ARPA money that we had. Housing Families is a nonprofit organization with many years of experience in housing, case management, raft applications, all that sort of housing assistance stuff that you see probably on flyers around here. And they are offering the following services. They are helping with raft applications, case management, housing search assistance, tenant-landlord disputes, we have a lot of those, housing applications for Section 8, CHAMP program, and emergency hotel placement program for those who are close to being without a home. They specifically have a paralegal and an attorney on hand who each volunteer 15 hours of their time sitting in City Hall. They have an appointment calendar that can be booked into. You simply have to go to the correct city employee. So if you know someone who needs help with housing services and wants to talk to the paralegal or the attorney or the case manager, social worker person that they've got, they are in City Hall on Mondays and Wednesdays, Mondays from 11 to 7 and Wednesdays from 8 to 5. I'll have Joe put all of this information in our minutes. They are available other days of the week if you need that. They have a hotline. And we have 2 employees at City Hall who you should direct these folks to. We have Maddie Alvarez. She's one of our community liaisons. Her physical office is in the basement here in the liaison's office, but you can walk in anywhere and they would direct you to where Maddie is. We'll list her email, and Nicole Palermo, who's a social worker down in the Sudi office. So Maddie and Nicole, they have the ability to book into this calendar. So you can contact anyone who can direct you to Maddie and Nicole, but those are the 2 ladies here that are booking into this physical calendar and have access to those housing families, employees. Of note, the community, CDBG, so I can't say their whole name out loud or else I mess it up. They have funded housing families for other legal services, but the contract is still not fully executed. So there may be some delays, but we do have folks here Mondays and Wednesdays at those special times. You have to have an appointment. I don't believe you can just walk in. I am unsure of language access. I don't know, besides English, what languages are provided, but our liaisons, we have them in Spanish and Arabic and Portuguese right now. So lots of options for help. So yeah, housing families, City of Revere.
Okay, I'm glad to see that partnership is strong. You know, it's worked with them on a number of things through the years and certainly appreciate their efforts. So the last formal agenda item I had was on an update on the first-time homebuyer down payment assistance pilot, which Lorena, unless anything's changed since last we spoke, the update is no update yet because we're waiting for the funds to come in from the state. Once they do, we'll be able to activate. So I'm going to say we'll table further conversation of this one until the next meeting. Does anyone have anything else to add as a late item? Or, you know, comments from the peanut gallery? Yeah, folks. Seeing none, thank you, everyone. I thought this was a terrific meeting. Was really appreciated the thoughtful questions that you all had, you know, where we want to combine moving with some urgency, but also making sure we're doing our due diligence. So I think you all did a phenomenal job of doing just that, and appreciate all of you. With that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Second. Any objections? For those that can't see the gavel on Zoom, there you go.